Okay, so today we really want to primarily focus on change of statuses to F-1 status. So lots of people have a whole alphabet of different kind of visa types they could be studying here in the United States, but the F-1 benefits come with some really cool things like curricular practical training and optional practical training at the end of the time while you're here. Also, that on-campus work authorization to have assistantships and other things can really open the door to a greater success while you're finishing your degree here at the University of Arkansas. So, big picture, we're really going to talk about what does it mean for change of status to F1. If it will let me play nicely. Okay, so we want to give like a clarity of what is our office able to help with versus what our office is not able to help with. When we are allowed to help you with a change of status to F1, so that's a change from a non-immigrant status to another non-immigrant status type. An adjustment of status is when you move from one of the visa types to permanent residency or a green card application, and those do need a qualified immigration attorney to see your whole scope of your immigration record, what may or may not make you qualified, and all of those things are just outside of the skills our office has the capacity to legally advise on. Unfortunately, we're not able to help you with that one, but our office or the Office of International Admissions are the people who really help take those first steps of getting you an I-20 to start your application to move towards a change of status to F1 status. So we have kind of a yes and no question to know, where do I start? So if you've already started studying at the University of Arkansas, we're the people you want to talk to first about getting that I-20 to initially start or to like move from any other status to F1 status. If you're working on still getting admitted to the University of Arkansas, maybe a graduate program, maybe an undergraduate program, regardless of what kind of status you're needing to change for, if you haven't already been admitted, then all of those new I-20s you would need to start your next process is a part of the admissions process. So you would just let them know kind of, yes, I need an ISS office, or should I go to international admissions? Now, there's two ways to apply. We can apply right here in Arkansas, inside the United States, or I could choose to apply for a change of status outside of the United States. This is a really critical question to ask yourself first. It kind of sets the tone for how can I ask for my I-20, because there's two different types of I-20s you would need. If I want to change my status while I'm here inside the United States versus if I'm planning to go outside of the United States and come in an F1 status. So what's the steps? I'm applying outside of the United States. This would be one, you would either need to get your I-20 document from either our office or international admissions. Remember, our office has an application you do with us. International admissions is through your admissions portal. Then, once you've been given your I-20 that you would need to either apply for your change of status or depart the United States and come back in. Once you have that in hand, then we're going to fill out the DS-160, apply for a visa appointment either in my home country, or there's other opportunities for students who could go to third countries like Canada, Mexico, other places. But ultimately, we don't really know exactly which consulates take which countries. It's kind of a country by country kind of need. Given the current wait times and the kind of changes in visas things, it may or may not behoove you to be able to go entirely to those places. Less countries are probably going to be more likely to offer as many opportunities for people who aren't their citizens to apply in that country, just due to the supply and demand of appointments for visas. But let's say we have our I-20, I got my visa slot, I'm ready to go, I get to go home, I get to have the food and my family, and like smells, everything feels kind of normal again, related to what I know and love about home. Then that is, again, another huge draw. None of us would want to stand in your way of getting to say hello to our loved ones and to feel the culture and vibes of being back in our homes. But we get our visa appointment, then we're going to show up to the country in which my visa slot is in. Then I'm going to go and fulfill my interview. There may be opportunities for students to not have to do their visa appointment. You could potentially be a part of the Dropbox program. We have seen with this current administration that they are restricting the number of countries and places where drop-off locations will still be accepted. So we just want to be helping you prepare that maybe inside the United States is better, maybe outside of the United States is better. It kind of depends on each individual student, their needs, and what may or may not be their bigger priorities when it comes to that change of status. The last one is that eventually we want you to come back. You have all of your documents now, new visa, fresh stamps, ready to come back. The big thing here is if I travel outside of the United States and I go to renew my visa, then when I come back into the United States, there's going to be a catch. I can only re-enter the United States 30 days prior to the start listed on that program start date on my I-20. And so that's one thing to also consider. So if you were like, I'm going to go in early summer, and then you realize you have a start date for August, then it might be like late July, like mid-July, before you would be able to come back in. So you're like, I left in April, and then I couldn't come back until like mid-July. Are you prepared to understand that you could be out for a few months of time? Is that okay? Some people are like, yes, great. And other people are like, I really don't want to be away that long. Maybe they have their families are also here in the States as well. You have small children, and so trying to navigate single parenting is difficult. So again, different needs for different students may provide if international travel or domestically staying and applying may be better. So this is the one where you really need to know. If you chose to try to change to F-1 status here in the United States, you can do it right here, right in Fayetteville. No need to travel anywhere. You can stay just in the comfort of your own home. So this one starts on our ISS link webpage. If you're scrolling on our ISS webpage, you scroll about halfway down the page and you should see these links on the side. So there's 6 different links. The one you're looking for is ISS link. Then once you're in ISS link, you're going to go to the general tab. Then you're also going to click request I-20 to obtain F-1 status. Right, so this is how you interact with our office. I've already started my program. I'm already here in the United States, and I want to be able to kind of start working where this is. Or even, I'm already here in the United States, and the biggest step is that if I've already started my program, you have to come to us. If you have not started your program, then everything is through admissions. So this is really the step for I'm already here and I've already started. Then after that one, there's going to be 3 things we would need to see for us to issue it. Similar documents are going to be needed for international admissions, but the 3 big steps are going to be showing us your letter of acceptance to show when did I start, do I have official admissions to the University of Arkansas. The second question they're going to prompt you with is they're going to need to be able to prove that you have the financial capacity to be here in the United States. So right now, depending if it's undergrad or a graduate program, in addition to the cost of tuition and fees, we have to see something called your cost of living allowance, right? So that's a requirement from the federal government to say, not only can we pay my tuition and fees, but can I also afford to live in the United States while I'm here, right? Those numbers can be very large when we look at the big picture of it. It's also okay to remember that many of the times our international students are studying here are on assistantships because that's really what makes education far more cost effective. There's no such thing as a round way to go to school, whether you need to take out a loan, there's already money in the bank to do it, or if you take an assistantship, we will just need to see all of that money in a cash on hand account, right? So even if you have a really great investment portfolio, but if all of those things are like locked in and you cannot quickly access that cash, or you would have to liquidate the assets to have access to that money, ultimately we cannot consider anything that's in like a fixed account where you wouldn't have immediate access to those funds would not be allowed for us to use to count towards showing your proof of finances for that, unless those assets had already been sold. Then the last one, I also have to decide, am I applying in Arkansas or am I applying outside of the United States, right? Am I applying here or abroad? If I'm applying here, we'll issue you a certain kind of I-20. If you're traveling abroad, we would issue you the other kind for you when you travel abroad. Right now, it's the less important about what it is, of what kind of I-20. They're pretty small nuances. But if you did do the change of status inside the United States, you would have permission to be here the whole time. So whereas if you travel internationally, you come in an F-1 status, you have that 30-day period where you wouldn't be able to re-enter. If they were applying right here in the United States, you could be here the whole time. Any questions or concerns so far? Yeah, go ahead.
Changing the status while staying in the US,
Mhm.
does it affect the current visa status?
So if you get an official change of status to something else, then once that I-20 is set to start, whenever your I-797A or the change of status approval notice comes in, then that would kind of tell you when does your official start date of that status begin. And then if you wanted to come back in, if you wanted to move back to the other status you had previously held, you would have to go back to that status.
No. For example, I'm F2 visa currently.
Okay.
And in cases I'll get the opportunity to get an admission here and getting an F1 visa.
Sure.
Do I have to go out or can I change my status staying here in US?
You can stay right here and apply for that change of
For
status.
that, my current F2 visa will remain valid till I will get the F1 visa.
So from our understanding of what is a visa is supposed to be a travel document that matches. So like if I'm entering the United States, I would have that status plus that visa to show that I have the authority to come back into the United States, right? Like I've matched my documents to the things to unlock the door to the United States. That's our current understanding of how a visa process works.
Let's example the I-94. It's mentioned that which status you are here.
Sure.
So do we need to take another I-94 or we have to exit and then come on F1 visa, or we will stay here and let's continue our studies and our visa will be changed here in Fayetteville only?
Great question. We're actually going to look at that full process and what documents will be issued to you once that's happened. So that's one of the things we'll talk about next. So we've decided. Go ahead.
I have one question.
Sure.
So for example, if I'm applying my visa from here from United States, and let's say it is taking like 12 months to get it approved. So can I travel within that 12 months to my home country? And if I come back, is there any document or is there any issue I will be facing if I'm traveling?
Sure. One thing we'd really like to clarify, your visa and status are two very different things. Status is the thing that keeps me here, that shows what am I doing to have legal presence in the United States. In F1 status, that means I'm a full-time student. If I'm an F2 student, that means I could study part-time. I don't have any work authorization. There's specific regulations that as long as I'm maintaining this status, I have legal rights to stay in the United States so far. Like this is kind of our broad picture of what we understand. Then our visa is really something that is a travel document to accompany the status I currently hold, right? Or the status I'm applying for. So as we're working through some of those kind of understandings, a visa is not something we can apply for inside of the United States. An actual visa, you must depart the United States, go to a US consulate, and actually get the visa renewed for it to be an actual change of a visa type if you have an official change of status to any other type of status. So we decide, are we applying? I promise I will answer all the questions. It's coming up, I promise. So if we get that initial I-20, right, for whether it's applying outside of the United States or if I'm going to do my change of status I-20, then we get this document. Now we're ready to apply for the next set of steps. If I'm applying inside the United States, I need to file a form called the I-539 or the change of status application. Our goal is to also send out these slides that also have links to this. So this change of status part at the bottom is actually a hyperlink to learn more about that form. Ultimately, our office does not legally advise about what to fill out on that form. It's really straightforward if you're reading the prompts in the USCIS application. They're going to give you like the steps of, I need this set of documents, this is what I need, and then you upload those things and answer the questions accordingly. Much of the time, it's things like, where were you born? What's your date of birth? What status did you enter under? What was your most recent I-94 number? A lot of this is that kind of basic information about how did I initially come in status, and then now we're going to try to work to my actual approval process. So we can use this links here to learn more about that application, what kind of questions may they ask, things to get prepared for, and then finally, what you're going to do is you'll finish the application actually in My USCIS. So this will take you actually at the bottom of this link as well to the main page. I like this version of the site. I feel like it's far more friendly. It's the My USCIS one. It will prompt you, if you don't already have an account, how to make an account. You'll walk through the security steps, create the security questions, work through the process, and then it'll eventually say, I want to file a form online. So the form you're going to file is going to be the I-539. And then ultimately, we're going to have to sit and wait for the next set of things to come. So like that's kind of a sit and wait kind of way. One thing we do want you to know is that a basic change of status here in the United States, if we're applying inside the United States, if we only want to pay the basic fee, which is $420, that could take anywhere from 8 to 12 months of time to get it approved just on standard processing time of things we've seen in the past. There is something called premium processing. Premium processing dramatically changes the cost for us to do that. But when we're weighing pros, cons, what may be best for me, maybe not best for them, is after a while when we think the cost of an international flight, my time that I need to be abroad, my trying to get to my visa appointment, scheduled, applying for everything, I may have already paid just as much money, if not more, to do that. And then could I get my visa time and an approved timeline that would be best for me? Is it like that my country may be on a place where I just don't feel safe to travel right now, and I'd really prefer to just try to stay put in the United States? All of these have very different levels of ways where students may weigh pros and cons for each option, but the change of status that we see with premium processing usually happens within a month or less. And so that is helpful, right? If I'm going to pay the kind of money that takes to be able to do premium processing, we do tend to see a high rate of success of getting them back very quickly. So if it was like, maybe you got that last minute admission, right? And you were like, no, I really want to start. I found a GA. I really want to start in my graduate program. I found the way to pay for school. Like, yes, all of the things are lining up and I really want to take that. Then by all means, we would really recommend, if you need that quick turnaround time, the change of status inside the United States with the premium processing may be one of your best options for moving forward.
And how much that cost?
Like somewhere between like $2,200 to $2,300. So we're going to participate in a little bit of a mind experiment. I've decided to stay inside the United States. I got my I-20. I went to the My USCIS website. I filed my I-539 or my official change of status application. Then I just sat and waited. Then all of a sudden, I got the best news ever. USCIS sent me back my I-797 or my official change of status to F-1. On this document, this is what it kind of looked like. It's on a fancy green piece of paper. It's going to also, you don't see it really here. This is not like a full version. Sometimes they're more than one page. In the bottom left-hand corner of an I-797 is going to be a new I-94. So the time in which, because again, there's all kinds of visa types in the United States that you can move from to be able to choose F-1. So if you entered the United States on a different visa type, a new I-94 would be issued at the very bottom of that page. So if somebody's like, hey, can you send me your most recent I-94? You would actually upload the I-797. So that would show that if you've been approved for F-1, that there's a start date of when that status happened. And then there would be, usually you'd see something called D/S or duration of status, which means as long as I'm maintaining my F-1 status, then I should have the rights to stay inside the United States. So all of that new I-94 information does get printed at the bottom. So essentially, the visa gets difficult, right? So we're not really staying in like an F-2 visa. That was just the document that helped us get into the United States with the status I had at the time when I made my point of entry into the United States. Then when my change of status is approved, I'm reissued my I-94 with the new status I have and for like the new end date for what that would be. Ultimately, in F1 status, that's for duration of status. So as long as I'm in F1 status, I should be able to remain inside the United States. Then lastly, so I got my approval. Now, because I moved from some other status to a new status, especially one that's going to be directly related to you going to school here at the University of Arkansas, we really need to get you into something called immigration basics. During that session, we do the federal requirements that we have to do for students in F1 status. So we check your documents, make sure we have everything up to date, and then we teach you like everything you have to know about F1 status. Like, what do I need to know to make sure I don't really get myself in trouble, that I just know how to like exist on campus in F1 status and feel confident that I know what I'm doing and I can continue out to give you a little bit more autonomy to know what I can and can't do in my status and moving forward and beyond. In addition to those, we'll do things like Beyond the Basics, similar to this session, right? Where we talk a little bit more in depth about different kinds of topics. So it could be, I want to bring a spouse or a child. If you're already in this one, you're kind of aware of that, of the how do I help my person move to a different kind of status. And so we're one of those places we could do that. We also talk about curricular practical training, optional practical training, different kinds of tools across campus or things we want you to know about. We'll host those kinds of sessions similar to this one. But that very first one is like non-negotiable. If you want to still be an F1 student here at the University of Arkansas, you will have to attend immigration basics. Okay, so some other things we really kind of highlight. There's two common visa types we tend to see the most of when we're moving from one status to the other. One is F2 to F1. So here's some of those big questions we have. Can I start studying an F2 status and then move to F1 status? Absolutely. There are some things that are a little different about those. F2 students can only study part-time. So as a graduate student, full-time study is 9 hours. The maximum an F2 student could study at a graduate program is 8 hours of that study. So even though it's not exactly, it can get really close. So if maybe we need like one more semester before we can financially make it happen, right? Then it wouldn't mean that you could be starting to make some of that academic progress to things that would be helpful to you, and also give your brain something to do, to feel like deeply connected to something else. Like this is a really great way for you to be able to do something while your dependent is here to help them feel a part of something. You can also, what we want you to know about that is that ultimately, if you want those really good benefits, you're going to want to be able to eventually move to F1 status for that full-time like course of study. The only way a student could be eligible for OPT or CPT on F1 status is if we've also met the 30 weeks of full-time class requirements to be eligible for those benefits. So traditionally, those are going to be things like a fall and a spring semester, right? I've completed both. So many of the majors here at the University of Arkansas have opportunities for internships or cooperative education, which really are amazing things that we can do CPT for. But the tricky part is that you usually have to be enrolled in a class at the University of Arkansas to be able to get curricular practical training. So sometimes students are like, but I'll get my 30 weeks if I started in the summer and then I did a fall and then like halfway through spring, I would be able to do CPT. So some of those things are like, technically, per immigration regulations, yes. But when can I actually enroll in the classes and get the credit for the class that I could do that might change when I would or would not be able to do that one. If we have specific questions about when would I be eligible for CPT or OPT, I would really recommend you make an appointment with our office to come and meet with an advisor about when may or may not be the best opportunities for you, what would be strategic plans to have. We're here to try to help you with that. We know it's a lot to navigate. How would I plan my semesters for that? Especially when I'm moving from like F2, right, where I can only study part-time, to how do I maximize my time in F1 status. Now, then this is another thing we could talk about. I know we talked a little bit about it of should I change my status while I'm here inside the United States or outside of the United States. Basic things to consider. You have the opportunity that you've already been approved for an F2 student visa that you would like to apply for an F1 visa. Similar non-immigrant visa type could probably be very easy to get an approval for an actual F1. There are the new additional challenges of how long would it take for me to get a visa? Would it be cost effective for me to travel to my home country or to another country to renew my visa? Again, those are those pros and cons lists of trying to do that one. And so I think that that's really a decision that only like you and the dependent, you like the F1 and F2 student have to talk about together, right? Of what would be in their best interest and what is most cost effective, all of those different things. We know there's a lot to weigh in those things. So it might be easier for you to apply here in the United States. It might be easier for you to apply outside of the United States. Both are valid options. Both are ways we see students be successful. We really recommend like taking a look at the political climates in your home countries, doing the things that you feel like to know, asking your consulates how long it would take. Unfortunately, we no longer have access to see like the global wait times for different consular appointments anymore. So really, we don't know how to like give you an estimate on the timeline either. It's really students calling and making those appointments or checking with their consulate offices to see the approximate wait times for what those things are. Again, also, can you get the consulate to answer the phone is another great question too. But those are other ways where you could do that, talking to friends, seeing how long that's taking, if they're applying for visas as well. Like that feedback right now is really coming from your home countries and those consulates around you guys as well. Okay, the next big one we see is if I'm moving from H4 to F1. So many times students who are in H4 status really would like to stay in H4 status as long as possible because there's some different kind of tuition benefits or things like that for them because they've been already here in Arkansas for a little bit of time. You can, in fact, start in H4 status and move to F1. One of the nice things about H4 status is that you can actually study full-time in H4. And so this would really allow opportunities for everyone to go and to start your program. And then when you've had that fall and spring semester that makes you full-time eligible, then as soon as you have your change of status approved, then we could look at actually getting you into like those classes or for things like CPT or curricular practical training or optional practical training. So they could happen at a potentially later time, whereas many of our F2 students are really looking to move to F1 because they would get better benefits sooner by going ahead and applying for that change of status. Can I apply for my change of status inside the United States? In this scenario, I would really recommend an H4 student apply for their change of status inside of the United States. The trick with this is that an H4 is a dependent of an H-1B visa holder. Under that type of status, that means it has a dual intent, which means it could be that I have a non-immigrant intent visa or an immigrant intent visa. One of the tricky parts about the F1 student status is that it's going to be a non-immigrant intent visa. And so if I've shown dual intent, it could be almost impossible or really challenging to overcome the immigration intent of renewing my status to come back in F1 when I've already been in H4, right? So this is one of those additional tricky pieces is if I've had a status that showed dual intent in the past, it could potentially trigger a harder renewal from any other kind of visa type that's considered a non-immigrant visa type. So we recommend, we've seen a high success of students who have changed from H4 to F1 here inside the United States. Again, this one is really going to be down to when is the timeline in which we want to do it. If you know that I really want to apply for my change of status later, like I'm going to start a master's program, so the first year I'm going to start my change of status process, I'm going to like just take the normal cheaper option. Right, I want to take the cheapest option. Once I get my change of status approved, I've already been taking the required number of hours to be an F1 student status to be at those full-time hours. So if you're a graduate student, I would recommend all 9 hours. And if you're an undergraduate student, I would recommend being always in your 12 required classes in the fall and spring semesters. So then you're making your academic progress to show full-time study in the United States. Then when you're doing that, then as soon as your change of status is approved, we can start helping you get into that F1 status. You would still have the same kind of things. We would also put you through immigration basics. We would talk through all of the same kinds of things of how to navigate life in F1 status. We just really understand that some of the higher success rates of students going and trying to apply for a change of status from H4 to F1 are going to be best served by doing it inside of the United States instead of outside of the United States. Then, everybody's favorite question, again, is can I apply for CPT or OPT? The nice thing about H4 status is because I could study full-time the entire time I was in H4 status, this would allow me that if I've done a fall and a spring semester, as soon as that change of status is approved, as long as I still met like the 30 weeks of full-time classwork in my program of study, then we would be eligible to look at things like CPT or OPT, or curricular practical training and optional practical training. Optional practical training is usually for the very end of your degree program. Curricular practical training is the work authorization you can get while in your program doing things directly related to your field of study, whereas OPT is how do you do that work directly related to your field of study after you've completed that program of study. Okay, I know that was a lot. It's the big overview. I know there will be a lot of hyper-specific questions. One of the things I would really ask that if we're going to ask questions, ask those kinds of things, is that if they're super, super specific of like, this is my specific case, and I really want to know how to approach this kind of case, we really recommend you scheduling an appointment with us. We can give you that individualized care to know kind of best steps that might be for you. If we have general questions, things that we didn't get to that you hope to hear a little bit more about, we would really like to use this time to answer those questions. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any information about J2 to F1, changing from J2 to F1?
You should make an appointment with us.
All right, okay.
It's a little bit different,
A
little bit different, but we will help you understand what does that look like. But great question.
It's for my spouse, actually.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Still, my question is remain the same regarding. Okay, I'm on F2 as I told you. In general, I'm asking to you. You said visa and this documentation is a separate thing.
Yes, status and visas are separate.
Okay, but in our visa and our passport, it is mentioned F2.
Correct.
Okay, we will apply for F1 here, and you get the I-20 also, and we can apply in Faithville itself. We don't have to go to
it's literally an online application.
Online application. So we'll get the status of F1 online. You are saying?
Yes. So you'll apply for your change of status online at MyUSCIS. Then we have to wait a little bit of time for them to make their decision. When they give you their final decision and it's approved, that's when they would issue you this document right here. So this is the I-797 or the change of status approved.
Okay.
On the change of status approved, it will also issue your new I-94 in the bottom left-hand corner that shows where it is.
Yeah.
You can actually remain inside the United States. From our current understanding is that you can still maintain your status inside the United States with an expired visa or a visa that doesn't even match the current status type that you have while you're here inside the United States because you're still maintaining status. For instance, my spouse is a foreign national, came in under an F1 student visa, came in, did all of that OPT, CPT, OPT, STEM extension, then had a change of status to H-1B. Then from H-1B, had an H-1B extension. Due to the pandemic, could never really go home during the time to renew their visa. So they ended up not going back until after their change of status had been approved to an entirely different kind of status, went home, came back with a new stamping, and then has been able to remain inside the United States as long as they're maintaining the status. So whether it's F2, F1, H-1B, any of the other visa types, as long as they're maintaining that status, from our current understanding of the regulations, a student should be allowed, or whoever's maintaining that status, should be allowed to stay inside the United States during that period of time.
I-797 will give us the permission to travel.
If you were to travel,
my passport is still, I have F2 visa stamp.
Yes. If you were to travel outside of the United States after your change of status has been approved, for you to re-enter the United States, you would need a new visa matching that status.
Yeah. So for that new visa matching, we have to go to consulate here in US to get the visa on our passport or in our own country.
You have to depart the United States to get a US visa. There's no way to renew a visa or get a visa inside the United States.
So
you have to travel
we have
outside.
to go out or if we are going for some holidays also, we are going out.
Sure. Regardless of what it is,
Once
you would
we
have
are
to.
out from the US, we have to come on the new visa.
Correct.
And in case it will not be given to us, then we will be in a problem.
That is correct.
So it means if we have changed the status in US on I-797, we have to be in US till we will finish our study.
Not entirely. You, again, if you've come from like F2 to F1, that's kind of those pros and cons, right? That if you feel like you're moving in an F2 to F1 and a non-immigrant intent visa to another non-immigrant intent visa. Whereas some of our other students came in on like that H1 or H4, right? Which shows that dual intent, right? Which is that I'm both potentially a non-immigrant or an immigrant intent, which is what sometimes changes those ways of being renewed the visa. It is very, very, very unlikely, again, if we take all of the current political climate aside and what we understand about how visas have traditionally been issued and how they kind of move, has been that we have seen is that an F2 student applying for an F1 visa, if you've already been approved for a United States F1, F2 visa, it would be, and you have all of your documents to show how you're going to maintain your status in F1, you would be highly likely to be approved for it, because that would mean a visa officer has to overturn a different officer's decision about that you should have been approved to come to the States the first time. We also understand that the current political climate also provides other opportunities for us to have a little bit more increased anxiety, to know like what is those official ways of it going to be. We ultimately don't have final answers. We can really only speak to our historical knowledge of what it is and where that is. If we have other big updates or changes that we know about, our office is working very, very diligently to work with other attorneys we have on campus to help us understand the immigration things and then inform our students as quickly as humanly possible about the things. So ultimately, there's no way for us to assure. Every time we depart the United States, there's always some level of risk that I may not be allowed re-entry to the United States. I'm a US citizen, and when I hit customs, I sometimes wonder, like, where else will you let me go? Like, sometimes just the feeling of being at customs is so overwhelming, even as US citizens. So I definitely understand like the pressure of this. It feels so life and death many of the times when we're trying to make these decisions, and like, should I go home because I really want to see the things that make me feel whole and complete and the things that raised me and all the things that I love and miss about home? Well, also, I don't want to lose this really great opportunity. And ultimately, we can't really be the ones to make those decisions for you. Those have to be like personal decisions of, am I willing to take the level of risk that I depart the United States on holiday and I don't have a new visa, and that I have to wait to try to see if I can be approved for my new visa, and that I wouldn't be allowed re-entry to the United States until I have my matching visa for the status I have to come back in. Like ultimately, those are just risks that students have to make, whether I want to stay here or to travel abroad. Yeah.
Okay, you have cleared one thing, that we have to take the risk. If we are getting I-797 and then we are going out, we have to come on the new visa, which is matching as per our current status of F1. Okay, this is the scenario if we are taking the I-797 here. But if we will travel and we'll take the I-20,
correct,
and we'll apply in our country.
Sure.
Okay, to get the visa for to take the F1 visa. Now, currently we have a multi-entry visa available with us on F2 status. So once I apply with the I-20 for F1 visa, and in case the authorities has refused
sure,
to give me
like
the
they just
F1
decided
visa,
not to do
yes,
F1.
because there are a lot of time this will happen. So in that case, if my visa have been refused, my current F2 visa will be affected with this.
If you're denied for your F1 status, you can always choose to re-enter back under like whoever is holding your status as a dependent, and you still have time on your F2 visa, you could re-enter the United States in
So
F2
it
status.
means applying from outside will not affect my current status if it has been rejected by them.
Not if it's not the same exact visa type. So if it was if you had been in F1 status and you were trying to renew it and it got denied, then it would cancel
F1
the
status
previous
I don't
one.
have.
But if you had an F2 visa and you were trying to apply for F1, then you can. For instance, I had a student who came in H4 who was trying to change to F1 earlier this year. They were denied the F1 student visa, so they came back to the States and applied for the change of status inside the United States. So they didn't like end their H4 visa. They just had to come back in as a independent status instead of their own individual status and student status. They had to change that
Kayla,
status. Yes.
Kayla, can I add something here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can't guarantee that they won't actually cancel your original visa. If they have discovered or believed to discover an immigrant intent, and that's the reason for the visa denial, they may also cancel the original visa of F2. We have seen that situation as well, and in a recent webinar with consular officials, they also mentioned that scenario as a possibility. So I do want you to be informed that if you do get, you change your status from inside the U.S., when you travel and you have to renew your F1 visa, you may be able to use your F2 as a safety net to return if the F1 is not approved, but there is also a chance that they cancel the F2 if they deny the F1.
That's good information, Sarah. Thank you for updating.
So both the way it's risky. Either we will apply from here or we can go out and apply from there. Our F2 visa will be in the risk.
Again, visa is a travel document, not actually the thing that holds your status. So if you want to study here, you can for 100%.
But how can we study if we are not able to travel?
That some people make those risks where they choose not to travel and they stay in.
The only thing is that you will get a visa here and don't go out of here till you will finish your study.
And that's oftentimes what many international students do, is that while they're here and they're studying inside the United States, they are not returning back or traveling internationally, that they spend a lot of time here in the States. These are all really good questions and really hard questions, and not always the fun parts of the questions we want to ask about. But also remember, if you've already made it here to the United States in some kind of dependent status, you guys have already proven to be rock stars on your own by leaving everything you knew and love in your home country, starting over, trying something new, approaching a new task, when the world feels a little bit all over the place of what are we going to do next? Would I do it in my home country? Should I travel? You could have literally chosen to study anywhere in the world. And so we're so thankful that you choose to be here at the University of Arkansas, considering studying here at the University of Arkansas. And we really want to help in the ways we can to encourage you to make the decisions that are best for you, and to also know that we're here to help talk through the weird things that come up while you're talking through those. If it's outside of our legal capacities for us to advise you on, then if you say, hey, I think you should talk to an immigration attorney, it's not because we don't want to help you, it's because we have your best interest in mind, that there may be questions that we're just not qualified to answer to, and want to make sure you have the best possible answers for that.
As you mentioned, that the F2 visa can apply for F1 visa and apply for getting an admission here also. And then he can start his study.
Correct.
Till he will not getting his F1. He can start.
Correct.
Okay, because on somewhere I just read it online that even F2 visa holder is not authorized to apply for any like getting a admission somewhere or putting an application for an admission process.
From our understanding, that is incorrect. That if you wanted to do a full-time course of study, some schools will only offer full-time programs. But if you were willing to be like, if I only want to take 1 or 2 classes to be able to start my program, it's a really great way if you've also never studied in the United States before, of getting a feel of especially at a graduate level, of getting what does the graduate school feel of the American classroom look like, is a really great stepping stone to kind of getting your feet wet and to understanding what program you're doing. So you're always eligible to apply for them unless it specifically says this is only 100% online, or if it was going to be like a full-time requirement. If there's not a full-time requirement, then F2 students would be eligible to look at applying for those things and taking classes. It's a benefit an F2 has. It's part-time study, just not full-time study and no work benefits.
Can an F2 visa holder enroll in full-time?
No, only part-time. Anything under A full-time study would require an F1 visa. Or like an F1 status, sorry.
Mhm.
Or
But
part-time
F2
is the max.
F2 status will not be enrolled in the F1 for the full-time course.
They cannot. That would be a violation of
Getting a
F2
full-time
status.
study, you have to be on F1 visa.
If you're already here in F2, the most likely way for you to study full-time is a change of status to F1. You could also talk to an immigration attorney about other statuses you would like to try to study in full-time courses of study, but that's outside of our capacity.
But F2, you can go for a part-time courses, the certificate courses, you can do it on F2.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any certificate course also you're providing the F1 visa? F1 status?
It depends on what you're trying to do. Like there's possibilities for it, but usually most people at the University of Arkansas offers is most commonly for actual full degree programs, not just certificates. Many times students pick up a certificate program while they're in their actual program of study.
Means on certificate courses like for 9 months or 12 months, you will not get the F1 status.
Say that one more time.
For a certificate course, you will not get F1 status.
If it's not going to be like a full-time course of study, then ultimately that would not meet the F1 requirements. So if it was just like, oh, I take 3 hours or 6 hours a semester, if I don't have something else that's helping me meet if I'm at a graduate level without an assistantship, my 9 credit hours every semester, then that would then make it to where I wouldn't be
Executive
meeting.
MBA will be considered as a full-time?
Say that one more time.
Executive MBA
Could I help?
program.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it would be helpful to not think about the requirements of the program, but your enrollment each semester. So if you are taking classes full-time, so 9 credits, you have to have F1 status. If you're below full-time, then you could do that on F2. The certificate programs vary whether they meet the regulations for an F1 program. For example, most of the certificate programs just might be offered only online, and so an F1 student could not take that. But that's something that you can inquire with per program. But if you're just interested in taking some courses, you could either do that toward a graduate level or toward a certificate level. That's not the point. The point is whether you are enrolled part-time or full-time.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any online people who we haven't had your questions answered, would like to ask a question? I know Sarah's been monitoring the chat, so I haven't really seen that one. So thank you, Sarah, for being online and providing your inputs as well.
There was a short discussion just about the visa wait times, Kayla. I know the site was down a few weeks ago. They have reactivated that site. So I put the link in the chat, so you can also receive that from us if you need it, if you're in person.
Perfect. Okay, were there any other questions, concerns we didn't address today? If not, thank you all in person and virtually for attending today. We appreciate you guys asking great questions, being engaged in this, and we look forward to seeing what decisions you all make next.